911.
Cardiac arrest.
25 0.
We have a working fire.
Hold traffic, shots fired.
Crash happened. I don't remember flying through the air. The next thing I remember is hearing something roaring and thunking around my head. And I went to take a deep breath and I couldn't inhale. And I thought, well, if I just move my head around, I'll be able to breathe. And I couldn't. All of a sudden, that thunking noise came to a complete stop. And I heard my friends screaming and talking to each other and calling my name. And during that time, one of the individuals who has a strong North Carolina drawl was saying, Mock, I'm going to put my hand in your mouth and I don't want you to bite me. You've got sod all over your face. And I thought to myself, okay, Bill, I promise not to bite you. I would like to breathe. And he went ahead and moved that sod. I was melting to the manifold system underneath the vehicle. My left arm was entangled in it.
With the side pipe exhaust, yep.
And so from that, pure manpower moved the vehicle enough that they were able to get me out from the vehicle. And then they rolled me over. I was face down, holding proper traction on my head and such, and neck. And I looked up at them and told them I passed command. I'm no longer in charge of the scene. And a couple of them just started laughing and recognized, this is our bud here, and he's going to be okay. And then, that was kind of a challenging moment also where they're asking me about my height and width and such. And I said, well, what is this all for? Are you going to buy me a new suit or something like that? What do you need to know my chest size for?
You buying
no.
Building your coffin for you already, just in case they don't like you?
I was truly confused. And they said, no, this is for the actor. We match people up to what they look like the most and such. And I says, well, I've got some good news and some bad news. I said, the bad news is you're not going to hire an actor. The good news is I'm just going to play myself.
Yep.
And they said, we don't do that. And I said, well, okay, it was nice talking to you, and hung up. They called back in a few minutes and said, we got disconnected. I said, oh, I know. I hung up. You said that you weren't going to do that. So there's no, I told you it was nice talking to you, didn't I? I didn't just hang up. I thanked you.
You were just upset that it was like that 9/11 movie. You didn't want Nicolas Cage playing your part.
I didn't even see it. I didn't even see that movie. But I actually told him this. I said, who do you think is going to get you a Bell Jet Ranger to use, and an emergency room, and my friends, and a trauma room, and an ICU room to go ahead and film? I says, if I don't play, none of my friends are going to play, and I'm going to tell everybody that's involved not to do it. How about that? And they says, well, if you think you could psychologically handle it. I went, psychologically handle it? I said, I've already been hit by the car. You're not going to hit me again, I said, yeah, I think I'll be okay. And I'll tell you, I'm the only person in that TV show's history that ever played themselves. We all need heroes. So I'll go back to a couple weeks ago where, we were out of power for 6 days, and the linemen were doing their work. And I talked to one and said, even firefighters need heroes. So thanks a lot.
You're not the first person that said that. Dennis Smith, in his in one of his later books, Report from Ground Zero, said almost the exact same thing, where he was talking about the iron workers that were just scurrying up the debris of the collapse zone of 9/11, like 30, 40, 50 feet up into the air without a moment's thought that they could fall to their death and be impaled. And he was like, there is something to be admired about those iron workers. So you're not the first person that said that.
Yeah, and again, I a very biased, Mike Staley opinion is we bind ourselves in thought, thinking internally a little too much, where we as human beings need to be a little more external and accepting and listening, because we need spices in our life, not only for cooking, but for entertainment and for rest and relaxation. But I can tell you, everything was. I had photocopies of what the hazardous material, that it would have to be in the United States. We did it all, and it was funny because after the convincing of the people from that owned the helicopters, then they said your next step is to go ahead and convince our pilots. And for those of you that don't know who flies Russian helicopters, it's Russians and Chechens. And these helicopters are, first of all, super cool, and they're super big, but they're efficient. And when I talked to the 25-member staff of the crew that was there, I asked them how many people can understand English, and there were 6 of them that raised their hand. And so I went ahead and asked them if they would interpret for me. They said yes. And I told them that this isn't rocket science that we're dealing with here. It's germs. And then I asked them if they remembered Khrushchev. I think I called him Mr. Khrushchev because I can't think of his name. Couldn't think of his name then, can't think of it now. And they all after the interpretation, they all raised their hands. So then I unlaced my boot and took it and started smashing it on the makeshift table that I had, and said, this is how this is going to be. And I promised this is how this was going to be. And they all started laughing because they remembered Khrushchev doing that at the United Nations during a speech. And so once again, here it is. It's humor. It's being able to laugh. It's being able to accept that these guys started clapping and laughing in guttural laughs, just not a ha-ha. That they understood, that I understood them a little bit about their nation, and they were willing to do the work. And they physically saved thousands of lives by letting that happen, which I will tell you today is still being used, as there is an Ebola outbreak in Uganda.
You might be able to write another book out there and give us some sneak peeks on, on your perspective from emergency management far above and just, your time with the fire service. But Mike, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. And now it seems like I have to end meetings. If I offended anybody in any way, please seek counseling. Use your employee assistance program to the best of their capabilities.
And here's the coupon code for that, which I do not have. I'm sorry. Once again, this is your host, Christopher, of the Ukrainian Fire Chaplain Show. If you have not already, go ahead and look at our website, theufcshow.com. It's got information about us and ways that you can follow, subscribe, or support us. We're on various podcast platforms. We're on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're able to, consider supporting us on Patreon. Also want to give a shout out to Daniel Atchison, the music artist Atch, for permission to use his song Forever in our productions. Until next time.